thank you for joining us. I'm waking up this morning, so anyway, welcome everyone to ACO Case Collaborations for March. Boy, this year has marched in, hasn't it? It's just crazy, crazy busy. So I am so glad to have you here. I know we missed February, and so we're picking up this month with the topic that we had for February. And the topic is really about the challenges that we experience around communication and coaching. And so we're going to get into that, but I think I actually missed a slide or two. Did I miss a slide or two, Anne-Marie? I did. There. So we're going to start right here with ACO Case Collaborations. And Anne-Marie, I haven't spoken with you. You've been quite busy, but I will go to the next slide. If you want to go through that, great. Go for it.
Okay, sure. So actually at the end of the month, we are having our final follow-up. We had our big 3-hour VIP quarterly business planning workshop in January, which was a paid event. It was a fundraiser for ACO. We had great participation, and every month we do a follow-up to just check in with people and see how their plans are going. And as co-business owners, we all help each other out and stay on track with our goals. So it's been a super successful venture. And our participants have reported that they're really moving ahead in ways that they wouldn't have if they weren't supported in this way. And we're all learning from each other in the process. So it's been a lot of fun. So we do plan on offering it again in the future. So just stay tuned for announcements of when that's coming up. Today, Robin, do we have another special announcement?
Not till the end.
Not till the end? Oh, okay. So stay tuned because there's more coming. So let's just dive right in. So today's opening word is spoken. And if you send that to our email, ACO or ADHD coaches at oh goodness, Robin, I'm messing this up. Please state it properly for me. Programs at
programs at ADHDcoaches.org. You'll need to send the word and the closing, which we will share later. Yes.
Yes. So again, that opening word is spoken, and get that to us in the next 24 hours along with the closing word, and you will receive your CCU.
Excellent. And we're going back to the screen share mode. Oh, there. Okay. So why don't you just do this real quick because you do it so great.
Sure. So we do ask that you keep your lines muted as the presentation is happening until you're ready to contribute to the actual collaboration part. So we do have a few case studies to present. We have them in a brief format, and then we will open the floor to contributions about how you would deal with this client if they were the ones who walked into your practice. So you can mute and unmute yourself at the bottom of the screen. There on the bottom left-hand side, there's a little button that you can mute and unmute yourself. So it's pretty straightforward. We're looking forward to getting started.
Yeah. So as I had started with, kind of jumping ahead, it's all about the challenge and communication with coaching today. And sometimes those challenges can be with us, between us and our clients. And sometimes the challenges can be with the client and the people they need to relate to in their life. So before we jump to the next slide, I just would love to hear from others, just to kind of start a parking lot here on my paper. What are some of the challenges you can think of right off the bat about coach and client communication? Anybody have some? It's awfully quiet. Well, I have a whole checklist, but yeah.
Actually, I have one to start. I just started with a new client about 2-3 weeks ago, and I really, I commended him because at the end of our last call, you know how when you can just kind of feel something's off. So I opened that conversation, I was feeling like he was expecting something more of me, even though he didn't say it. And so when I questioned him about it, he said, well, you know, he goes, I feel like every time I want to reach out to you to check in between appointments, I feel like I'm going to be bothering you. I feel like I'm interrupting your busy life. And I'm like, oh, okay, let's talk about that then. So it gave us an opportunity to really like clear the air and refine that client agreement around our communication as client and coach. So it's really a wonderful opportunity.
That's great. That's a great example. Thank you. Anybody else have an example? I thought of one while you were talking, but does anybody else have one? All right. I was just thinking about the client that says, I'm sorry all the time in a coaching. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. You know, I'm sorry all the time. They apologize for themselves all the time.
Robin, do you coach a lot of Canadians?
No.
Being one, I can say that. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, I didn't mean to say that. No.
Oh, yeah, or I'm sorry. You know, I didn't get to it. I'm so sorry. Yeah. They're always apologizing for themselves. That's something that comes up sometimes in coach-client communications.
I have one. It's Dana.
Hi, Dana. Yes.
Hi. People that are verbal processors, clients that are verbal processors, and you can't get them to stop talking. And I have a really hard time interrupting people.
Yes. Yes. Hard time interrupting. And that's actually on the checklist on the next slide.
So good.
I hope we get to talk a little bit more about that one too. Great. Anybody else for coach and client communication obstacles?
Yes, I'm on it. Yeah.
Is that someone? How about client and the people around them that they need to communicate with? Ideas about that. So client and relationships.
Christine.
Yes, Christine.
I know I had told you about a different one, but I often find that some of my clients have the conversation in their head and never with the people that it actually involves, and they think they've had that conversation and they really haven't.
Right. Yeah.
So that's one of them.
Oh yes, but I told him. But I told you, right?
Yep.
My husband says I do that, Christine.
Oh.
But I told you, right? Awesome. Thank you. Anybody else? Client and communication challenges with the people around them. I have another checklist too for this one, but just in case. Hi, David.
Hi.
I had a client who, a young woman who acknowledged that this was an issue for her, but she didn't know how to deal with it in the moment. But a friend would say something that may have been snarky or it may not have. And my client always jumped right to assuming that it was snarky and mean and the person hated her and everything became catastrophic. And her husband would often be the mediator and go, wait a minute, do we know that? You know, so she recognized that he was really helpful in helping her take down, but she recognized in herself she would always go to worst case scenario and catastrophic.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And then like freeze out the friendship rather than deal with it. She didn't know how to have that conversation with her friend to check what the friend really intended.
Oh yeah, to check in. Yeah, great. Yeah, one of mine is you always, you never, right? And I think I've mentioned those words, those phrases are outlawed as much as possible. Because they always make me feel bad when someone says I always or I never, right? But actually I do, and I did, right? And I know that, but it's so absolute. But trigger words, right, can tend to get an emotional reaction from us. Well, I'm going to go to the next slide unless somebody else has something else they want to add. Just unmute and speak up. All right. So here are some coach and client communication obstacles that came up. And there's a lot on here. We will not be able to talk about all of them. So I'd love for everybody to take a moment. Hopefully you can see the screen, and take a moment and just think about which one pops out to you the most. And we can certainly talk about that. And when we're talking about it, let's approach it from the frame of, yeah, I see that when I'm coaching my clients, or I experience that when I'm coaching my clients. And let's do some brainstorming about coach approaches to help our clients work through that communication pattern. Okay. So where do we start first? We're going to spend about 20 minutes on this slide. So we have time to discuss and collaborate on some problem areas with communication. Where would you like to start first?
Robin, this is Christine. I love the blaming others, making excuses, and being in denial, because we see that across all age groups, right? We see that with kids who are blaming their teachers for not grading an assignment, or for not interpreting the answer on the test correctly. And then we see it, you know, with the adults we work with, you know, and I think that's just it's something that goes across all ages.
Yes, yes, thank you, Christine. So what are some of the signs we see when someone is caught up in blaming others, making excuses, or in denial? What are some of the cues that we get as a coach that that's happening? Well, one is they're pointing the finger, right, at somebody else, right? What do we notice happening in their bodies when they're in this mode of blaming someone else, or making an excuse, or being in denial?
I know for me, my one student that I'm thinking of, he gets kind of hot with me. His voice tends to get, you know, agitated, and, you know, he tends to get very animated.
Okay, agitation, animation, good, right? What else do we see? Signs of?
Robin, this is not so much in the body, but there tends to be more of a story around the situation rather than factual reporting, or
Hearing a story. I love that, yes. Well, yeah, they just jump into this long reason, excuse, or whatever, right? Yeah. What is happening in the brain when someone results to blaming others, making excuses, in denial? Would you, I'll throw it out there. I don't want you to feel like I'm putting anybody on the spot, but would you agree that maybe there's some overwhelm or shame going on?
It's probably shame. I would think it's shame. That seems to be the underlying emotion for a lot of activities, as well as the overwhelm. But things like blaming would be shame, in my opinion.
Shame. And some amygdala hijack perhaps going on, Dana? Would you agree to that too? Yeah. They're caught up in
I was just going to say that.
Yeah.
The Dale, amygdala hijacking.
Yes. Thank you, Dale. Yeah.
Or fight, flight, freeze.
Yeah. So if we know that this is what's going on, and we're picking up on some increased agitation with their voice, maybe they're getting louder, maybe they're sharper words, maybe they're more animated with their hands, you know, or their gestures, maybe they have a defensive posture. Maybe you're hearing that story start up, right? And we know that it's around shame, or it's around amygdala hijack. What are some strategies as coaches that we can use to bring them back to a place where we can continue a productive coaching conversation? Any ideas? Anne Marie, I know you have a good one for this one. Maybe you
I
don't.
do.
Yeah.
Refresh my memory. I'm searching right now. I'm like, what would I do?
It with me, actually, I think.
Would
Yeah.
would
Is it
some sort of
I am
would some sort of stress reduction
I'm sorry, Dana, what?
Dale, would some
Oh,
sort of stress reduction technique like breathing in, breathing out, something to calm down a little bit?
Yes, yes. Breathing in, breathing out, get some oxygen to that brain. Stop the rumination or whatever is going through their head.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or ask a ADHD thinking trap question like, is there another way to think about this? Or what is it, I don't know, maybe some body centered. I'm just questioning, I don't know.
I love it. An ADHD track question. I love that. Thank you.
And I agree with Dale that that calming activity, whatever it is for that person, and often in coaching, the easiest thing to do is to engage the breath and just take a moment, right? And then once there's been a little bit of calming and perhaps a little bit of regulation with the amygdala, even though that takes time for those hormones to, finish their cycle, but waiting to introduce that question, is there another way to think about this, which I think is great. Allow a little bit of space for that calming to happen, because we can't access that until there's a little bit of calm.
Yes. Yes. Thank you, Anne Marie. And I was going to say, you're so good at this. I've seen this in action with you, and I don't remember when, but I was like, oh, you're so good at this. I am noticing, I am picking up on you. You like to use those words. Am I wrong here?
No,
in case collaborations, you've talked about this a little bit, but I'm starting to notice you're feeling a little frustrated here, or you're feeling a little agitated, or
well, often too, instead of and I've had a lot of practice with this with my own coach too. She'll say like, well, I don't know what you're feeling, but I'm noticing your voice is changing, or I'm noticing that you're using really emotional language. What's that about? Or something like that.
Yeah.
So more noting to them the observable behaviors and allow them to then track into what the emotion is for them, because we don't know how they're feeling.
Yeah.
We can guess.
Yeah. So that reflecting back, that calming activity, engaging the breath, that perspective hunting, to look at what's going on from different angles outside of that brain. The way the brain is currently looking at it. Anything else for a strategy for blame, excuse, denial?
Well, I'm thinking back to what Dana was saying about shame often being at play here. Because there's often a lifelong history of being blamed for things. And so that blaming others or making excuses is the defense, right? So I'm wondering if in certain situations, kind of normalizing whatever the event is that's provoking the shame, just kind of normalizing, going, well, it makes sense that you'd be defensive about blah, 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 but is it really so bad? What if, it's true that you didn't turn your report in on time, but there wasn't really a confusion about dates, and okay, so, what are the consequences? And what's the worst case? Okay, so it's late. What's the worst case? Or just kind of bringing the emotion out of it and back to the facts, and taking some of the sting and the shame out of it. It's like, oh, okay, well, this happened, and that's okay. It's understandable.
Yeah.
And now what? And now what can we do?
Yeah, and that was going to be so normalizing is the fourth transition, or the fourth strategy. The fifth one might be the reset button. I used to use this all the time in parenting. Let's hit the reset button, back up, go backwards, come back in, let's try this again, right? But now that you've had that opportunity to go through that reflection and calming and perspective hunting, normalizing, what would you want to do differently now? How would you want to think about this and act on this now? So great. Thank you. Can I ask for another example someone wants to talk to or talk about on this screen?
I'm jumping in yet again because I really, really want to hear what people have to say about this, because this has just cropped up for me and it's not a typical thing. And I'm actually surprised I haven't come across more of this, but what do y'all do when people miss out on agreed upon accountability check-ins?
Oh, yes, yes.
Inquiring minds want to know.
Yeah, that's a great one because that happens to me too. How about somebody else? I have a trick to work with that.
I just check. It happens all the time. I mean, this is the nature of ADHD, and I zip in and remind them that they were going to check in. But if I don't hear from them again, we talk about it on the next call. But I don't make a deal about it.
Okay.
Because often I see it's a key that they're not doing what they're supposed to do, and they don't want to disappoint me, so they don't want to tell me, and so we need to have a conversation about if that's what's going on, or they just overwhelmed with emails or texts or calls or whatever, squeezing out what actually is happening.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thanks, Dana. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I guess it would be about questioning, is the accountability check-in really helpful for you? Or are we just doing this for the sake of, going through the motions here, right?
The other thing that I do is I leave it up to them if they want accountability. Some people do, and some people don't.
Right.
So I give them the option. And then if they say they do and they frequently miss them, then I just say, well, that's obviously not working, because I have to make reminders for me because I forget them. So I'm happy to do it if they're engaged, but if it's just one more thing they think they should be doing and they're not, then let's take that off the plate.
Right. Yeah. That's great. Yeah, because then it becomes another failure if they don't check in, right? It's just one more thing they didn't do right. So,
yes, exactly.
So I'm kind of curious, do others, for the check-in, do you expect the client to initiate the check-in, or do you initiate the check-in with the client? I used to start out initiating, and then it was like, what am I doing here? They need to be checking in with me instead of me running circles around them. So what does everybody like to do for arranging accountability check-ins?
It just depends on the person. And some people, I just make a little reminder in my phone to check in just randomly. During the week, just a text, how are you doing? Of course, I work with adults, so if you're working with students and children, it's probably different. And then some people, I say, okay, I'd like to hear from you, or when would you like to check in? And we say a time, a date, by the end of the day on Thursday or whatever. So it just depends on the person.
Okay, thank you, Dana. Anybody else have an add to this process of accountability check-ins? I don't know if Peter's on. Is Peter on?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hey, good morning.
Hi. This was your example. Do you have something you want to add here or ask about?
Well, again, it's just a sort of a constant. I guess I see it as just such a big part of coaching in general that if they're not doing it, then in between calls, like especially for a student, a week is a lifetime in a way. And so if they're not showing us they're doing something in between, it feels like we start all over on the next call. But that said, I see what Dane is saying about giving them the choice. I don't know though. Isn't that the point of coaching in a way? Like what behaviors, what actions are you going to take? Because it's almost come to me that the behavior of just taking action on at least a couple of items is so much of the entire point of the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't see I don't know if I don't see really giving them the choice, to tell you the truth.
It depends. Well, and again, I work with high functioning adults and business people. So it may be a different clientele, but I don't want to be put in the position of their nagging mother. That's not what we're about. And I also look at the progress that they're making between the calls, and I judge on that as well. Some people are making progress without checking in, without accountability check-ins. Some aren't. So it truly, for me anyway, it depends on the situation, but I don't want to be put in the place as the nag, because that doesn't do anything for the coaching relationship.
Right. Now, again, this is strictly students I'm talking about.
Yeah, so I think we just have a different client base. And
yeah. I totally agree on adults. Totally agree.
Yeah,
totally.
If it's students, I'd be nagging the heck out of them, because you have. Yeah.
And it's frustrating because, again, you don't want them to feel bad, but in a lot of cases, they need to, it comes down to getting themselves to study is, the point.
Yes.
In my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Peter, this is Christine. I coach a lot of students, and I have a lot of students that don't respond to my texts, but I think that makes for a rich coaching conversation. As Dana said, kind of in the next coaching session, I'm not sure that what a text or two from us is necessarily going to change their behavior. I totally understand what you're saying, because a week is a long time, but I kind of take it from, this is an experiment and let's see what's going to work.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think you want to go all week without some sort of accountability, sure, let's try that. Let's start there. And then let's revisit it next time.
Yeah. Thank you, Christine. Peter, I have something I'd like to share as well. When I'm working with students, is that I give them the choice about the kind of support they need between coaching sessions, and I will meet with them for a week. And then it's kind of trial and error, noticing what happens as we kick off that coaching relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that they show up the next week and they say, well, I just really didn't get around to it, or I wasn't able to do it. That's when I have this conversation with them on what they need between now and the next time we meet to help them get more accomplished. And I try to meet them where they're at. So for example, if I'm working with a client on the homework cycle, because that is their area of challenge, and they are not starting their homework when they say they want to start their homework, I might go ahead and shorten my coaching time with them for that week and arrange to connect with them quickly on the phone at homework time in order to help them get that started as a way to step into more success.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
And that's worked better for me because I'm trying to keep the parent out of the situation as much as I need to based on the parent-child relationship. So if they know they can just talk to me and for a few minutes and say, this is what I have going on for homework tonight, and we just kind of coach around what that looks like, and they can get started, it kind of helps them. And that's just the homework scenario, right, with students. So.
Right, now that sounds more like, most of mine are college.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds more like, not that you couldn't do it, but that sounds more like, grade school or high school that you're talking about. You could do it with the college.
I've done it with college. I've done it with college, especially on the weekends. If someone says they want to get to studying at 10 a.m. and they know they have a hard time getting started, I'll offer to be that kickstart phone call for them.
Yeah.
In order to help create that habit, but then it's up to them to develop it.
Yeah, and again, the willingness to do that by the student, or shows their level of engagement.
Yeah.
Because that's really again what their engagement level, and wanting to really use you to help them to motivate and get more done is the key.
Yeah.
No matter what, a lot of students, their parents in some way, shape, or form, did send them to you. I'm having lots of conversations on differentiating me seriously from the parent and realizing that they shouldn't tell me what I want to hear as if I am the parent, because it's a waste of the resource. What I say is, what we should be discussing is, if you didn't go to the library, what did you do and what thoughts were you having as you didn't go?
Right.
Let's talk about awareness of what's going on when you don't do the behavior that you're telling me you're trying to do.
Right.
That's the discussion.
Yes. Thank you. And Dale, I see you raised your hand. Do you have something to add in here or to contribute?
Do you, it's a question, Robin, do you initiate that phone call at 10 a.m. or does
No, I used to when I started out as a coach, but now I have them initiate it, but I will set it up as a check-in appointment on my calendar so they get a reminder on my calendar. So I will actually, I have an appointment type called check-in. It's 10 minutes. And when someone says they want to check in, if they're an adult or a college student, and sometimes with a teen too, I will set up a 10-minute check-in appointment and they'll get a reminder for that.
Is that through Gmail?
I actually use Acuity. Yeah. So there's lots of different scheduling platforms, but I use Acuity for mine, where you can have different appointment types for your clients.
Thank you.
And that really kind of helps them. And then if they forget the first time, then what I will do is I will have them open their phone, because they're never without that phone, right? They've always got that phone. And I will have them schedule the check-in time right on their phone right then as an alert. But I try not to be the one that takes the step. And I'm just going to quickly get back to Peter on this too. It's all about how you set up that coaching in the beginning, in that first session, and what they really want. Because you know, as a coach, we don't drive their agenda. We don't drive their goals. We don't drive their actions, and they have to commit to that. And I was listening to a coach, and I love the way she put this. On a scale of 0 to 10, how committed are you with this goal or taking these actions? And if someone says, well, I'm a 4, then you know what? You're not there yet. They're not going to do what they want to do because they're not that committed. But when they're over a 5, like they're a 6 or a 7 or whatever, then you know they're pretty committed. And it's another conversation, Peter, with them if they are under a 5 with, well, what would it take to be over a 5? What would it take for you to increase your commitment, right?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So I like to ask that in my first session, setting it up, and I will talk with students too. You might be here because your parents want you to be here, but I'm here because you want to be here. So how committed are you, right? And so they'll tell me honestly, and I'll say, well, so what would raise that for you? right?
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah. So I'm going to go to the next screen, but thank you, everyone. That was great. Is there any quick ad that we have here for this? Okay. So your client's communication challenges with others, right? And Christine, is this first one the one you gave me? Is this?
Yep.
Yeah. So I love this. I could totally relate to this one, right? So talk this through and let's coach around this one, and then we'll come up with another one too.
So I have a client who comes up with these big grand plans and then springs them on his wife when he knows that she takes several days to be able to process things. And when I mean big, like he was planning a trip to Alaska and wanting to just surprise her, spring it on her, and have her be really excited. Mm-hmm. But, you know, I also know her and know that that would totally send her, you know, into a tailspin because it's just too big, too much, just coming out of the blue. Mm-hmm. You know, and he kind of consistently did that. And, you know, so we had to talk about, you know, we had to just talk about communication strategies. Mm-hmm. and, not necessarily going for, you know, these big grand plans, but, you know, kind of reining it in as well and acknowledging that the brain loved the idea of going to Alaska. It's something he wanted to go back and do because he had done before. And he was super excited about it, got caught up in kind of that ADHD excitement, but how to rein him in a little bit and bring her into the process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So thoughts around how you might coach with this client. What I'm hearing is how to coach with this client to improve communication at the start of these grand ideas versus after he's figured everything out and ready to roll it out. Yeah. So ideas on strategies here. Let's break it down. What would be the coaching strategy with the client? To talk to the client about understanding what's going on. Hey, Lisa.
Hi there. So you want to know the strategy, or you want to have some, like, maybe some questions you want? Should we just start thinking about how we might approach this client?
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. Yeah. How might you approach this client? Because I'm seeing it about awareness building.
Yeah, me too. So my thought was, you know, wondering what he's noticed. If this is a pattern, and I'm guessing it's frustrating to him to have his wife not excited if he's like spent all this time like coming up with these grand schemes. When he begins to notice her body language or the comments, you know, what does he notice that's supportive and what that doesn't seem so supportive to this process? So kind of as an awareness question.
Yeah, and so that is the awareness of his grand idea on his wife. I love that. And this is funny. I could tell you a funny story as related to my husband and I, but I'm not going to waste our time on it right now. But boy, I will tell you this some other day when we have time. But it's also about the awareness when he gets the grand idea, what his thought process is on moving forward, right?
Yes. Hey, Robin?
Yes.
I don't know if this is a dumb question, but which person has ADD?
Oh, well, that's a great one too. Yeah.
The client, the one who's creating all the grand scheme.
Oh, right. You said the client. Oh, excuse me. Oh, so he's the one making the big plans.
Yes.
Okay.
He's the creative thinker that's got these grandiose ideas, must be.
Yeah, I figured that, but I wasn't sure.
And think about how we are sometimes with our ADHD is we've got all these big ideas and grand ideas, and we're multitaskers and think we can do it all, right? And we take it on, but this is really something different, I think, Christine. This is about when he gets that idea, he decides to roll with it.
Yep. He
Instead
decides.
of pausing.
Right. And that's what we started working on, was the pause button.
Okay.
You know, so I start, you know, when I start to notice myself going to that place, you know, how can I build a pause in here, see how my actions are going to impact others around me, you know, and how can I kind of bring her into the process as opposed to just bringing her.
Can I share something that just popped into my mind, Christine?
Yeah.
So before that pause, my sense is if he's one of these like, whoa, gets a lot of ideas, ready, fire, aim. And the reason I want to maybe insert this first is because I kind of resemble that a little bit. To maybe wonder what's going on in his mind when he goes into the planning process. Like, what is he thinking could happen, will happen? He may be, if he's like me, wanting to come off to his partner as being really invested and caring and doing it as a gift or something, like, and then also wanting to have this really, sexy, wonderful finished product that she'll go, oh my gosh, thank you so much. You put all this time and thought and love into this. Because I know for some clients that I work with who share this, they may be really on a roll because what the picture in their head is not what the picture is in their partner's head. Their picture is, this is going to be awesome. So the pause, I think the pause is so needed. I just think I'm wondering, what were you thinking, what's going on in your mind when you're doing this kind of thing?
Yeah, Lisa, and you're so right, because it was a strained marriage because of all the ADHD. They're older, probably, they're in their 70s. So it was a strained marriage because of all the ADHD related challenges. And that's, I think, is exactly what we kind of came to the conclusion is, wow, this would be such a great way to show her how invested I am.
Or on top, or look at my executive functions. Look what I can.
Yeah.
You also have the Dr. Dodson rejection sensitive dysphoria going on, because we do not like, we take it tough when we have this wonderful thing and the person we feel rejected the idea. We will be quite sensitive to that, and maybe I would say defensive as well.
Yep.
Very true. So let's say your client walks in, Christine, and they want to do something new. You figured this one out, and now it's 3 months later, and your client is telling you about an idea he has. What are some coaching strategies that you might work with the client on to kind of reverse the impact of all those years with ADHD and create that connection and communication, collaboration?
Are you asking me or the group?
You or the whole group. Anybody with ideas, chime in. Yes. I know we have a lot of experienced coaches on this line, so.
I introduced the collaborative problem solving strategy.
Okay.
I often introduce that with parents, but I find that it's a really great way to get two people to sit down and listen to each other, ask questions, and come up with a solution together.
Okay, awesome. So do you want to, and I saw Dale raise her hand too, but do you want to jump into kind of what that looks like? Or let's see what time we have. We're good. We've got a few minutes if you want to jump into it, or we can switch to Dale. And
well, yeah, I would love to hear what Dale had to say.
Okay.
Oh, I think I was going along actually collaborative problem solving. What kind of awareness, what's the baseline behavior? What kind of awareness do you have about your communication strategies now.
Mhm.
If you could change, what would it look like in the best possible way?
Mhm.
And if you can agree on what some of the common needs are and wants, what are some of the steps that you might take to put those into action? How might you get to where you want to be?
Mm.
What changes would you want to make?
Mhm.
I'm just guessing.
Great.
Common's a very powerful word, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you add to that, Christine, or?
Well, I mean, I agree. I love that because I think that those questions would be a really good, if he needed more,
Mhm.
those questions would kind of open that up. They would show, okay, well, he doesn't have a strategy for communication. He might have an idea of what he wants it to look like. And then, if something needs to if an education piece needs to come in, then, you could kind of go into that collaborative, problem solving. Because I often find that some of my clients need that step-by-step guide. Like I have a step-by-step guide I give them, and I tell them, it's going to be messy the first couple of times, and it's okay to have it out on the table, and, look at it as you're working through this process. But Dale, I love I love the questions to kind of just see where, what's lacking, where there's some actual skills that need to be almost taught, so to speak. And then kind of jumping more into that. If there is a skill, how can we learn that?
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Excellent. Excellent. Anybody else have something they would add here? Or we can talk about a different one. We have about 5 more minutes to talk about a different scenario if you like. And then I want to make sure we stop 5 minutes ahead of our ending time to close things up. So
I think this asking for help, self-advocacy thing is really important. But anyway, go ahead, Anne-Marie. Yeah.
Okay, so I was just going to say this because I think it overlaps with some of the other things that we were talking about earlier. Just the ability or opening the possibility to step into a different perspective. So in the scenario, the way it's written, it sounds, I'm hearing a lot of self-centeredness, and not in a bad way, just in a limited way. He's got a limited perspective. I'm really excited about this, so she should be too. This is how I see it, so of course she would share how I see it. But really helping him step into, well, what are you hoping her response will be? Okay, and then what do you know about her and how she's responded to these types of things in the past? What's the most likely way that you might get the response you're looking for from her? Yeah. Knowing that we can never control someone else's reactions, but we might set the stage for success, in different ways.
That's excellent. Excellent. And Dana, you raised your hand, Dana?
Yes, and I also would be curious, the history, is it that she's a slow processor and needs time? Or do they have a history of him having the grand ideas, her starting to go along, and then the whole thing ending up on her plate because he doesn't have the ability to do the follow-through planning and the follow-through pieces?
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very interesting. Yes. What is the reality of that playing out?
Yeah. What really needs to happen to bring the exciting plan to fruition?
Yeah. Very cool. Thank you. Thank you. Lisa, which one were you pointing out?
Being able to ask for help. I just know that's such a challenge, particularly with young people, but adults as well, just making a lot of assumptions and trying to figure things out ourselves. And, I think that is often where communication breakdown happens. We're operating, like I like to say, I'm completely lost, but I'm making good time. Like we're afraid to stop and make sure we're on track.
What's that? I got
What does that mean? I'm completely lost, but I'm making good time.
I'm afraid to.
really fast.
I'm like, everything is late and delayed, and if I stop to try to get more information, like, I'm just going to make assumptions and keep on going here. And then, you know, unfortunately, what happens at the end is there's, because we didn't have the proper information, the communication didn't happen. I mean, I was saying it a little bit playfully, but I know a lot of my clients will just, you know, just make a lot of assumptions, keep on going because they're afraid to ask, to be revealed as not knowing, coming off stupid, or they're so behind on the project. If I ask now, then it'll reveal how behind I am. So so it's self-advocacy in general, but this is where so much communication breakdown, I think, happens because of.
It's also our emotions are ruling everything we do.
Yeah.
Engage the prefrontal.
Right, and that does require that pause that you mentioned earlier, the ability to honestly assess that we don't, you know, have the information, or that we're not communicating, or not answering an email, or not responding, you know, to getting back to someone at a phone call. There's I don't know, that's kind of the breakdown. I think it is connected to implementation in some ways, but I think you're right on about the emotions hijacking. So that's complex, right? Yeah.
Yes, it's very complex. If I can say something here, when I pick up on this, my very first strategy is to get to the fear, to understand the fear, because fear is what's blocking them. And then the second piece of that, and with respect to today's topic, is the communication going on. So it's not just about the communication they need to make with the family member, the academic support, or even their boss or coworker. It's about the communication they're having with themselves, that self-talk. So I would want to dive deeper into, before we talk about you talking to others, let's talk about how you're talking to yourself around it, and really do some brainstorming about what that is, a brain dump. What are you saying to yourself about talking to the teacher, or what are you saying to yourself, and how does that relate to the fear that's got you stuck in the moment? And so then you're getting all that garbage in their head, you're getting it in their head, out of their head, so they can see it, and then you can tackle it one piece of garbage at a time, you know. And sometimes their fear is very real. They might get fired if they go in and they say, I don't know how to do this report, right? But you can also do, getting back to that perspectives hunting. What do you know? What do you know about how smart you are? What do you know about what has worked in the past, right? You can tap back into prior successes, the realities in the situation. And the other thing is that if then, so if your worst case scenario came true, then what could you do beforehand or during or after to manage that? One thing we were taught in coaching is fears about, can I handle this? Can I really, really handle this? Can I handle my teacher looking at me like I'm stupid? Can I handle, you know, can I handle the chance that my boss might not promote me next month if I have to go in and ask for help? Or that a coworker will sabotage me, or that my family members are gonna, you know, fly off the handle at this whole situation. And then it's about coaching around them, the empowerment of them being able to handle in that if-then situation. So we have just a minute left, but I'd like to have you hang on for just a second. First of all, I want to share the closing word. The closing word is heard. And I do have to jump to another call, but I need to make an announcement. Christine, are you okay with this? Is Christine on?
Yeah, I'm still here.
You're okay with this?
Yep.
All right. So I'm going to do this without getting emotional. I have been with programs now for 3 years, and it has been a really, really, really fun ride. And I have had incredible people working with me. ACO has made a lot of great changes in the recent times. We have a marketing chair outage right now, and ACO programs really needs leadership in marketing. And I have agreed to step over into that role.
Wow. Thank you.
And so it's really hard because I'm tearing up because I've just loved programs and everything programs has become. It's just been such a filling up experience for me and a growth experience for me. And now I'm going to go over to marketing and I'm going to do the same thing. And Christine is going to be stepping up as program chairs for programs on the board. And I'm very excited about that. I can tell you on the committee, we had lots of people that were very, they're just also sharp. I just could not have asked for better people on this committee. And I know that it's going to continue to be an awesome thing. I know if you're not involved with a committee or in a board role or leadership role in the ACO, this is a great time to get on board. And I'm going to say I'm going to need people in marketing over on that side because I'm not going to rob programs in order to take care of marketing. So, but this will be my last time to do ACO Case Collaborations, but I will be on these calls still because it's just such a wonderful experience. So with that, I'm going to be passing the baton to Christine. And yay, Christine, thank you.
Wow, well, she's right next to you. You can just kind of reach over.
Yeah, right.
Thank you, Robin, for all you've done.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's really fun.
Thank you.
Big shoes to
They've been really wonderful. Very, very, very strong.
Well, thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Christine.
I'm over to marketing, but I will be around. And it's just been an awesome experience. And any ideas and thoughts you have about what you would like to see with programs? I know we have things planned through July, but Christine and the committee would love to hear your feedback on August through December or July. No, it should have been July through November for case collaboration topics or even business topics. So there's plans in the works to grow even more as programs, and all the feedback and input you have would just be awesome. So.
I'd love to see it later than 7 o'clock in the morning Pacific.
I know.
I can't think yet.
I know. Well, so being that early had to work for me, but it doesn't have to be that way for everyone else. So that's not my call to make in the future, but I totally get it, David.
Thank you.
Yeah, I totally get it. Don't forget to put your start and ending word in an email to programs at adhdcoaches.org for your CEU. I do have to close, so we're not going to be able to have these conversations about these anymore. But if there's something that you really had hoped to cover today, maybe we can integrate it into the next month with the next month's topic. Okay. So, and I can't even remember what it is. What is, oh, motivation magic. So that might actually work for communication, right? You might be able to segue some of the stuff we didn't talk about today into motivation magic. For next month, and I'm going to be there because I love that topic. So, all right. So I have to let everybody go because I have someone that's waiting for me. But thank you. It's been a pleasure. Congratulations, Christine. And
thank you, Robin, very much.
We'll be seeing each other in the future. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.